All right. No attendant. Okay. Welcome, folks.
Hey,
Thanks for coming
everybody.
up. Get started in just a minute.
Thanks for joining Buttoning Up today. You're going to learn a lot. Oh, and I see some familiar faces, or some familiar names, I should say, joining on the Zoom webinar. As you can see, I'm Becca White, and I am in my home office coming at you today. Fun fact, I weatherized my upstairs, so that's why I get to work from this lovely location. In the winter and the summer, I'm comfortable.
I'm Daniel Shearer, helping Becca out with Button Up Vermont, and also in my living room home office in Burlington.
Ooh. Yeah, I could point you out on my lovely map, Daniel, if I was so inclined. So we're going to be showing a PowerPoint presentation. And if you've weatherized your home, you'll have an even better shot of successfully answering some of the quiz questions that are going to be happening. So get ready for that.
All right. Let me bring that up for us here just a second. All right.
Awesome. So I can kick it off. Thanks, Daniel. Yeah, so if you just joined and you didn't quite hear the little chit chat at the beginning, my name is Becca White and I'm a community engagement manager at Efficiency Vermont. And today I'm going to be doing our very simple, easy to understand, what is weatherization? What does it mean? What does it mean to button up your home? And this is meant to be a primer. So throughout the presentation, if you do have questions and you're joining us in the Zoom, you're more than welcome to put that question in a Q&A, and Daniel's going to shoot a note to me. I'm not an energy consultant, for example, so if you have very specific questions, I'm happy to follow up if I can't answer directly today. And my hope is that we can get through this in 20 minutes and then open it up after that. So yeah, stepping up. And what is exciting about today is you have the opportunity to, or chance to, win a smart thermostat. Woo! If you stick around at the end, we're going to ask you a question, and you can either comment on the Facebook page or submit a note in Zoom, and we'll pick randomly from the folks who have commented or put a note in. And once that is over, we're going to collect those and we're going to randomly select someone to win a smart thermostat. So stick around for the end to get your name in there to win a smart thermostat. Very exciting stuff. So today we're going to learn about a couple of things. We're going to talk about what buttoning up is, what is Button Up Vermont, why are we doing it, how to get started, and then really open it up for questions and discussion. So thanks for joining us. So let me start by just giving you some insight into what buttoning up is. And I love this diagram because it was the first example that really sat with me that I could understand. So when we think about weatherizing our homes, the example we like to use is your sweater with insulation and with insulation, and your air sealing with your windbreaker. So insulation and air sealing, that's what we're talking about when we say weatherization. And some people just think that the first part of insulation is you're done, that sweater piece. But if you've ever worn a sweater outside, which if you're tuning in and you're from Vermont, you definitely have. On like a cold day, you know that you might get those air pockets that wind might blow through and make you cold, even if you've got a great cable knit sweater, for example. So on top of that sweater, you're actually going to want to put a windbreaker on. So that's air sealing. And when you combine those two, that air sealing removes those holes, which prevents the cold air from getting in and the hot air from getting out. So that's weatherizing in a nutshell. And the idea is we do that with our homes in the same way we might when we go outside on a cold winter's day. In the next slide, I actually have another example, which I always like to have photos in this kind of thing. And shout out to the team at Efficiency Vermont for putting these together, because not only are we thinking about it like, let's say, your sweater and your windbreaker, this makes me think of like a lunch pail, for example. And when we think about comprehensive weatherization, when you do that insulation air sealing together, you keep that cool air in your home in the summer. So this is a summer example, and the warm air out in the summer. So it actually does those dual things, winter and summer. So what is buttoning up? This is an image of your home to show you really how heat travels. Because of the principle of when air rises, when there are holes or leaks in your home, the hot air actually escapes through those holes in the attic or the upper stories, for example. And cold air and drafts will come in through leaks in the basement or lower stories. So you can see that stack effect. That's what they call it. And those leaks make insulation less effective, for example. So that air movement reduces the effectiveness of the insulation, just like a breeze with that sweater example. And some examples of common leaks would be your fan vents. So think your bathroom, your kitchen stove, your dryer, maybe your attic hatch is another location we see common leaks, chimneys, recessed lighting, outlets, doors and windows, basements, basically any spot that there's an opening to the outside world, you want to make sure that you're buttoning up. Yeah. And the next slide is very exciting because this is our first quiz question. So you can see the photo behind there. And if you're thinking to yourself, hey, I know the answer to this question, feel free to either put it in the chat, comment, or you can save it till the end when we give you the answers. But our first quiz question is this picture of insulating, air sealing, or installing an efficient heat pump hot water heater? And I know we've probably got some very smart folks in the chat who will know exactly what this is. I won't give away the answer. Oh my gosh, we've got it already. People are nailing it. I won't give, I'll release the answers at the end. But thank you for playing for that first quiz question. And I'll let you know at the end if you haven't already put it in the chat, or you've been you see the chat and you're like, oh, okay, I know what the answer is now. Okay, so we talked a little bit about that stack effect piece, but I also want to make sure that we show you the priority areas that you might want for insulation. So we think about the attic, the ceiling, those rim joints, basement walls, and the foundation. So those are your priority areas when you're thinking about insulation. And the next slide, I really want to spend a bit of time here because when we think about buttoning up our homes, all of that insulation, all of that air sealing, I think most of us kind of think about this list of things I have here and focus on one, when in reality, you can actually accomplish all four of these things when you weatherize. So you can save money. For example, a comprehensive weatherization project can save Vermont households quite a bit of money in fuel costs. And historically, households have saved about 15% after the project is completed. And it also, not only when we think saves money for us, it saves money for the state of Vermont. So when we spend money on fossil fuels for heating, for example, 78% leaves the state. So saving money can also help save money for Vermont. Then increase comfort. You know, I said at the very beginning, being comfortable in your space is really important. So as we spend more time in our homes, especially during COVID-19, we want to be comfortable, and it's important to be able to use the spaces that we want to. Although I do love using my electric blanket, it's nice to not have that be my only form of heating uh, or my only thing keeping me warm in the winter. Now that we've weatherized our upstairs, for example, we don't need to run the electric blanket all the time. It also saves energy. So you might want to think about that piece. Wasting money and wasting fuel, no fun. So saving energy can have a big impact there. And then last, I did want to highlight that it also reduces our carbon pollution. So the less fuel we burn, the fewer pollutants end up in our atmosphere and contribute to climate change. And as of 2015, 28% of Vermont's greenhouse gas emissions came from heating our buildings. So that's actually the second largest sector behind transportation. So this plays a key role in how we think about addressing climate change. 28%. So wow. Yeah. And surprise, surprise, it's quiz question number 2 time. um, So as you can see, this is a lovely picture actually of Matt Sargent showing us how to put insulation on top of an attic hatch, some foam board, I believe. And the question we have for you, you may have just heard me say it, is what percentage of Vermont's greenhouse gas emissions come from heating our buildings? And I'll note that the percentage I listed earlier comes from 2015. So if anyone by any chance has more updated numbers, I might be willing to be corrected. But yeah, what percentage of Vermont's greenhouse gas emissions comes from heating our buildings? Okay, yeah, look at that. We got some answers coming in the chat. Nice. Nice. Thanks, everybody. Perfect. Thank you for playing along. So now that you've been thoroughly convinced about the value of weatherization, you're probably thinking, how do I get started? And there's a few ways you can actually get started with weatherization that we want to talk about. The first one I want to highlight is if you're income eligible, there are weatherization assistance programs. For example, if your income falls at or below 80% of median income, you could be eligible for free weatherization. So that's something to really look into. If you're thinking, hey, we've wanted to weatherize for a long time, but we don't know if we can afford to do it, definitely check in to see if you are eligible for weatherization free services. Then next, we've got comprehensive weatherization. This is the best bang for your buck. And oh, Daniel was almost on it. You'll hear more about income eligible weatherization in a moment. But that comprehensive weatherization, again, working with an energy excellency, working with the EEN home performance with Energy Star qualified contractors. Those folks are great, and you can really save yourself some money and make your home more comfortable using that comprehensive weatherization program. And then last but certainly not least, and something we're highlighting this year, is doing it yourself. So we're all spending a little more time at home, and the rebates for doing it yourself, we've actually got a $100 rebate for completing DIY projects. And I'm going to talk more about that in a bit. So there we go. Next slide is talking about income eligibility. And there's a program for every Vermonter throughout the state. So if you, for example, are like me and you live in White River Junction, you'd give SEVCA a call. If you're Daniel, you'd be up in Burlington and you'd call CVOEO. St. Johnsbury, you got NITO, and I saw a bunch of other folks out there. You can, of course, you got Capstone and Brock. So some great weatherization agencies that make the process of looking into free weatherization happen. So definitely check them out if that's something you're thinking about. Now, let's say you don't qualify for income eligible weatherization and you'd like to think about financing a project. There are some fabulous home energy loan opportunities for you. So there's no interest financing, which is extremely helpful if you're thinking about doing a project. That's what we actually did at our home. We got a home energy loan. And what we found was we actually pay less each month in the amount that we pay for our home energy loan than we did previously in the cost of heating and cooling. So it's a great opportunity to think about how you can do instant savings and long-term savings. Of course, that might not be your situation if you're as lucky as us where weatherization made such a big impact, but please take a look, check it out, and learn more from folks like our participating lenders. And then highlighting that DIY piece. I love Vermonters, and as the daughter of someone who loves a good DIY project herself, I can tell you that any of these opportunities that you see, picking 3 out of the 6 will be not only educational for you, it'll feel empowering, which who doesn't love like fixing something yourself, but you'll also get some serious benefits. So definitely check out the Button Up Vermont website has the Button Up checklist, which I'll show an image of later on in the presentation. You can actually find videos on how to do each of these things. And personally, I'm a Matt Sargent fan. He's an employee at Efficiency Vermont, and he has some fabulous videos to show you how to do some of these projects. You can also check out more information at the Efficiency Vermont website too. So get yourself that $100. And this is another, drumroll please, quiz question. If you were listening a moment ago, you will have heard the answer to this question. How much is the do-it-yourself rebate from Efficiency Vermont? If you complete 3 of those 6 projects and you submit a rebate, how much money will you get back? I'm intrigued to see if I had some folks who were listening. Oh, yes, people got it. Well done. I won't announce the answer till the end, but if you're checking the chat, so far everyone seems to be correct. So thanks for playing. And as I said, here's a photo of the Button Up Vermont checklist. You can go on the website, and what I really like is that drop-down menu, like we just went over those 3 out of 6 projects you could pick from. Let's say you said, I want to build an airtight, well-insulated attic hatch. Go ahead, you click the drop-down, you can learn how to seal an attic hatch, and you can actually watch a video of someone doing that work. So being able to do it yourself and giving you the tools to do it is one of the big goals of our campaign this year. Yeah. And I did just want to highlight some of the differences between when you might want to do it yourself and when you would want to get a qualified contractor. And the last one on here, I just want to highlight, if you're thinking about health and safety, highly recommend reaching out to a qualified contractor because having someone who can make sure you're doing a comprehensive project correctly is extremely important. There are projects like we mentioned, like weather stripping or caulking around doors and windows or insulating pipes. Those are great for handy folks, but if you're ready to do a comprehensive project, it's probably time to reach out to a contractor. Yeah, so we're coming up on the last 2 slides, and this part of the presentation is really important because I want you to know what you can do next. If you're watching this and you're saying, wow, that was a lot of information, I don't know where to start, there's a few options for you. You can reach out to customer support at Efficiency Vermont. They can help you find the right next step or path. We also have free virtual home energy visits that will be made available a little later in the campaign. So if you live in a Button Up Vermont community, let's say you saw the posting on Front Porch Forum from your energy committee and that's why you're tuning in, you'll soon see an opportunity to have a virtual home energy visit with one of the energy consultants from Efficiency Vermont. So look out for more information on that coming soon. You can also find a contractor on the Find a Contractor page on Efficiency Vermont's website. That's how we found our contractor locally, and we actually went through a few. We looked at a couple options and we went with the one we liked the most, who gave us the best information. You could also call your local community action agency. So those weatherization agencies we talked about earlier, definitely take a look at those and see if you're eligible for free weatherization, if that's something you'd like to look into. And then Burlington residents, go ahead and call BED or check out their website for program offers. No matter where you live, there's an organization throughout the state that can help support you in completing this work. So, of course, I think everybody got these questions right. For the most part, I saw in the chat. I did want to give you the answers. Of course, that was air sealing. We're talking about $100 for the DIY rebate, and then 28% of our greenhouse gas emissions come from heating our buildings. So with all of that, I'd love to open it up for questions. And Daniel, if there's one that's popped up already, feel free to send it my way. But I'll
Nice work.
take lead. Thanks. Do you see that? 12:20. I told Daniel before this, I was like, I'm going to do this in 20 minutes because I know everyone's time is valuable. So we did it.
I saw one question come up. Somebody asked if this kind of work was, if the program overall and this kind of work is for general homes or also mobile homes.
Oh, great question. If you're thinking about like a manufactured home versus a like a stick-built home, I would say give a call over to customer support to think about what the right next step would be. Of course, if you're thinking about a DIY project, for example, that it's not dependent on what kind of home you have. But if you're thinking about comprehensive weatherization, there are some suggestions that may be made special for a mobile home user. And if you have questions about the type of work that you can do in a mobile home, I know we actually had a mobile home park that signed up to be a participating community, for example. You're welcome to shoot me an email and I can follow up directly with resources. Yeah, it's a great question.
And folks, as a reminder, if you're on Zoom, there's a Q&A option where you can add in any questions that you have. If you're watching on Facebook Live, post a question in the comments. We're doing our best to take a look and try to answer them or get you to the people who can. While we're waiting on any other questions, Becca, I was wondering what you know about if somebody's putting insulation into somebody's walls, what are the kind of materials they're using these days? Because I know that a lot of older houses, it'd be that pink kind of scratchy stuff that sticks in your hands or your lungs if you're breathing it in a lot. Fiberglass with that Pink Panther logo.
Yeah.
I know that there's been a lot of evolution over the last couple decades in that. I was in the garden yesterday and I found this.
What?
It might be a good use of like shredded up overly large zucchini. If that's something good to throw into the walls, or if there's better materials out there these days.
Wow. The zucchini, I did not see that coming. And I think you need to have like a warning sent out to your neighbors because the joke in Vermont, of course, is if you leave your window down, you'll get a zucchini. So, if you live near Daniel, just as a warning, close your windows. Clearly, he's got some zucchinis to give out. So there's a few different options for wall insulation or even in an attic. And you're right, there's some different versions. And I was actually going to see, I normally carry around with me this fun foam board, like when I would do an in-person thing that shows you the different types of insulation. And I was trying to pull up to see if I could find an example of that on the Efficiency Vermont website. There's lots of, yeah, let's see if I got this. Because it depends on your home what you would do, but some of the types of insulation you could have like fiberglass batting, you could do wet spray, you could do dense pack cellulose. There's a lot of different options, and what we put in our home, for example, was actually a spray foam. So there's other alternatives if the pink foam is something that you're familiar with. Building science has changed over time, and there's a few different options. So if you're like Daniel and you're like, can I put my zucchini pulp in my wall? I don't know of anything like that yet, but there are some important things to know about when you're insulating your walls. And there's a lot of different types of insulation. Yeah, it's a good question.
All right, we've got another question. somebody's got a 72-year-old inefficient furnace. Um, Somehow it's still working. Maybe there's a lot of those,
72 years old.
septennial. I don't know what the right word is for a 77-decade furnace, but their question
Celebrating their
um,
anniversary.
is getting a loan to replace it their only option? They had their house weatherized in 2005. Like, what should they be thinking about for getting in a better situation for that?
That's such a good question. So you have an old, it sounds like fossil fuel burning furnace, if I'm remembering the question correctly. I would highly recommend looking into replacing that, of course. There's some great new technology out there for heating and cooling your home. And depending on how your home is set up, you might want to consider something like a heat pump as a replacement. There's also some alternatives with modern wood heating, for example, and then some high efficiency. There's some other high efficiency products out there. And something that I really like, actually, which we have on the Efficiency Vermont webpage, is something called the Marketplace. And I've certainly used that when thinking about heating and cooling. And I wonder if I can, let me see if I can find the right link. I think it's just Efficiency Vermont / Marketplace. But there's also some offers for um, that we've got some information on repair versus replace. It sounds like you're definitely leaning more towards the replace concept, but there are some opportunities online. Um, the other question I would ask is, depending on your home and how it's set up, if you're thinking about replacing that old fossil fuel burning furnace, you might be able to take advantage, if you weatherize, and actually having a smaller or more efficient um, uh, way to heat and cool your home. So thinking about like that heat pumps piece. A lot of people don't think they're able to do a heat pump, but when they weatherize and they can see the reduction in their energy bill, those two things combined can actually save quite a bit of money. So it's a bit of a twofold question. And I would recommend calling customer support at Efficiency Vermont to see if there's some qualified incentives there, or reaching out directly to a contractor, or checking out the marketplace. There's a lot of different ways to get information on that. So good question.
All right, got another one here. So this one raises the residential energy building standards. Um,
Mm.
this is something that Vermont is, well, you probably know a little bit more about this than I do. So I wonder if you could say a little bit more about what those are. And the question specifically is, how does this relate to DIY work? So if I'm gonna do a project on my home, how do I make sure that I'm I'm aware of what the standards are? Is there anything that I might do wrong that might not be in compliance with standards? Does that even matter if I'm doing a DIY project? What's up with
Oh
that?
my gosh, what a good question. And I don't think I haven't done any research on if there are specific DIY projects that will bump up against the energy codes, but for the most part, I would say you're probably good when you think about a DIY project, especially pulling from that list of opportunities on the rebate for DIY. Um, and it's true, we have energy standards in Vermont, and those standards are something that an EEN contractor, for example, would be able to help give you some guidance on. There's also I don't believe we actually have anything specific on the Efficiency Vermont website on this point. But if you're wondering about building a new home, for example, we do have some information on new construction, especially with like becoming an energy efficient home, for example. So if you're thinking about it from that angle, building new, we do have some new construction information. But generally, I'd say you're probably good with DIY. I can't think of a reason why, um, if anything, you wouldn't be meeting energy standards better. But I don't know. So I'm just gonna stop there before I I know there's some folks on the webinar who actually know a lot more than I do, so maybe I should slow down.
I had another question from someone who is ready to do some weatherization, hire a contractor, they've been reaching out to folks and haven't had any luck in scheduling yet. And I
Hmm.
know that a lot of people are able to get projects scheduled. Other people, it's harder to find someone in their area, or there's just a long list to wait on. And for anybody who's looking for someone and still trying to find, I wonder if you have any ideas or coaching on what to do if there isn't a contractor immediately available to serve them.
Yeah, that's such a good question. And of course, with contractors and weatherization in particular, workforce development is something that is a struggle. And I know that there are certain parts of the state that don't have as robust of a contractor network as other parts of the state. If you're in that situation, if you haven't gone to the find a contractor page, maybe you're going off, hey, I think I know someone who does this, or you're Googling, I recommend going to the find a contractor page and potentially expanding kind of the zip code search you might be doing. If you are in a situation where you are not hearing back from folks, for example, I'll just give some insight into the fact that we are seeing 3 times more projects being pursued in this last August than we were in the previous year. So I just want to give some context to the fact that Vermonters are completing weatherization projects at a really high rate, and people are taking advantage of the incentives. And at the same time, that does mean that our contractors um, are having more work that they have to do. So with that in mind, I have no silver bullet besides keep trying and see if there's a contractor that's maybe a slightly more distant from you than your immediate area by using the Find a Contractor site or calling customer support at Efficiency Vermont. And I would say that this is an ongoing conversation that we have at Efficiency Vermont. I have some fabulous colleagues who work closely with our contractor network and are trying to make sure that we can meet the demand that Vermonters have. But at the same time, it is difficult if you're having trouble reaching a contractor, so I understand that. And then the last point I'll make is consider doing some, I know it's not the, again, silver bullet answer, but there are some good DIY projects out there in the interim that taking advantage of that rebate could be something to consider.
Yeah, and I know some folks have joined since you covered those details, but on the Button Up website, buttonupvermont.org, there's a good checklist of those DIY projects that you could hop right into this weekend to work on getting some immediate savings. As Becca covered earlier, if you complete 3 of those projects, you can send in and request $100 back towards your materials. So good opportunities to get going while you're waiting on a contractor to be available for you. I also saw somebody helped out with the chat where you're talking about the energy standards, saying that air sealing, that insulation, is definitely fits right in hand with the standards, and air sealing. If you, depending on how good of a job you do, you might want to check to, or have somebody help you checking to make sure that the right amount of airflow is happening through the house.
That's a great point. Yes. And I think a lot of us are thinking more about the quality of air that we have in our homes and our buildings now more than ever. And I highly recommend considering getting an energy audit or looking into getting that free home virtual visit when we're able to offer those. It's not an audit, what we do with the energy consultants, but it is a nice place to start. And we'll be scheduling those for January of 2021. But do look into, if you're trying to meet those energy standards, having a professional who can come in and do like a blower door test, for example, that can make a big difference in how you think about your home energy and where you're actually at with meeting those standards. So, wow, some really good questions. You guys are hardballing me today.
We had another question come up just asking about again, about some of the, like, what overall rebates are available right now for weatherization projects, and what types of DIY projects does that include?
Yeah, so as we covered with DIY, there's a great example of 6 options. Pick 3 of them and you get, when you fill out a rebate, $100. For comprehensive home energy, comprehensive home weatherization, there's some great incentives out there. And something that I'm talking to many Vermonters about is that the incentives, while very good right now, are quickly going away. So at this point, we expect to have up to $4,000 and 50% of a project's cost be incentivized for moderate income Vermonters, and up to $1,000 and 50% of the project cost for higher income earners. I want to make sure I get all my numbers right on that though. So let me, I'm actually going to be sending out an email later today to our participant communities with all the details of the changing incentives. And again, if you're thinking about a rebate for weatherization, that's important to you, go ahead, check out the website at efficiencyvermont.com and look for home performance with Energy Star, and you will see up-to-date incentives. Because the important thing to know is that with so many Vermonters taking advantage of weatherization incentives and the pool of funding that we have going away, more and more importance is placed on first come, first serve. So thinking about it, it's a great time, and the incentives are changing. Yeah.
You have time for some more questions?
Sure, we can do it. And I'll note, if you're watching on Facebook, should we do like, they should answer the question in case they need to go so they can get the thermostat, or
Oh, exactly. Yeah. Why don't we let's do that right now, and then we can stay on for any other questions that folks have. And if you can always, if you can't stick around but you had a question, put it in
yeah,
and let us know in the question that you're leaving, and we'll get back to you, either a comment on Facebook or we'll email you if you ask a question through Zoom.
perfect. So our question, are we doing it over the poll? No, we're just asking.
Yeah. So and you can respond in either place, Facebook or
Cool.
through Zoom.
So our question for you to get a smart thermostat, if you to enter to win a chance for the smart thermostat, is what weatherization project or DIY project are you going to do? What step are you going to take next?
Yeah, so just throw that in either the chat on Zoom or the comments on Facebook Live. We're going to assemble all these after the webinar into a spot where we can just do a completely blind randomized pick, and whoever is the winner, we will get in touch with you either through Facebook or your email address if you're on the Zoom to let you know. That said, if you didn't register for the Zoom, but you clicked the live link in your comment, maybe add your email address in there to make sure that we can get in touch with you.
Yeah.
But yeah, just throw out there whatever step you're going to take next. And it's so good to see so many people already with ideas of what they're going after. Keep in mind that there are a lot of helpful tips, both videos and guidance in the DIY checklist on buttonupvermont.org. So if you don't have an idea in mind right now, one of the things you could put up there if you wanted to enter is simply, I'm going to go to buttonupvermont.org and look at the checklist of DIY options and pick something from that, or pick all three and get $100 back in addition to my chance to win a Nest thermostat.
Exactly. Yeah.
Becca, what's the value of a smart thermostat in the first place? Why would somebody want to win one of these?
Oh, I thought you were saying what the cost is. I was like, oh, I don't know.
For this, stop looking at. If I was going to put one in my house, what do I get out of it?
Oh, yeah. So that's a great question. So a smart thermostat is programmable, adjustable, and it like responds to your usage. So my joke is always a programmable smart thermostat is great if you are, away from your home and you want to make sure that it's adjusting to the temperature that is changing. Like Vermonters, temperatures can change drastically. A smart thermostat can help regulate that and keep temperatures from kind of spiking, so you're not overheating or overcooling. They're modern technology, so you can check them out on your like smartphone. So that's a fun feature if you like that kind of tech gadgety stuff. That's a great reason to have one. And they can actually be connected to your other devices. So that's a nice thing. Like I don't have it in my home now, but my dream would one day be to go, okay, Google, lower the temperature 2 degrees.
Sorry,
Oh,
I don't understand.
yeah, I don't know.
Because you don't have one yet.
I know, exactly. Wow, I did not expect her to respond. That's a little creepy, but it is one of those features that over time, I think that's where we're seeing technology go. So there's some fun benefits to it, besides some energy savings you can see by using it effectively.
Awesome. And thanks everybody for adding in all the great items that you're looking to do. It's what this campaign is all about is helping get you the information that you need to stay warmer, stay comfortable in the winter, also stay comfortable in the summer, because while we're talking about the cold weather coming up, it's also just as critical in the summer. The heat waves that we've passed this summer, many of you might have felt that extra special these days if you're used to being in indoor air-conditioned space during the workday, and now you're at home. For anybody who's in that situation, I know I felt that sometimes. It's any DIY stuff you're going to do, any work with a contractor is going to make the summer better as well, and cut down on air conditioning costs, on dehumidification costs. Huge benefit there. So
Great point.
it's well worth it, and we just want to help you get there so you can cut down your utility costs, and as a whole state we can become more energy dependent, keep more money here in Vermont instead of sending it out for outside fossil fuels.
Yeah.
Should we get to a couple more questions? Well,
Sure.
we'll answering questions as you have them. One other thing I wanted to say is that we've got a lot of events coming up just like this one. We're doing these every Wednesday at noon. You can come back here next week.
Oh, yes.
About what's coming up.
Oh, yes. So if you're watching this and you have small people who live in your home, children mainly, or anyone who is a teacher or a student, get ready for next week where we're going to be having the Vermont Energy Education Program is going to be presenting a curriculum on weatherization. And that's something that you can use for your middle schooler, your high schooler, and even if you're at home in your homeschooling in that setting, there's a great overview of the program they have. And it's fun because you can actually use your home as the lab for how to weatherize your home and see what the building science is behind all of the choices that we make every day. So I'm really excited, if you can't tell. And I know that it really hits home because a bunch of folks have started school this week. So if you're already scratching your head like, what are we going to do? Checking out the Weatherization Wednesday next week with Veep will be a great thing to add to your curriculum.
We've got a ton of events happening over the next several weeks. I'm going to put a link in the chat and on Facebook as well for upcoming events that you can check out and register, just like following the model of this one. Other opportunities to win things too. So if you don't win today, come back.
Come back.
We've got a couple more questions now. One is specifically about that smart thermostat. Actually, two questions. One was about like, well, what brand should I be thinking about, if we have any opinions on that. I don't have any opinions on that. And the other question was, well, how do I know if it's going to work in my house? And I will actually say that I've been through this experience of, I had one and found that my current thermostat, which is actually just over there on the wall.
Oh, look at that.
Style, just turn up or down on the thermostat, only has 2 wires in it, and I believe for the smart thermostat that I had requires 3. And that, for those of you who know electric better than I do, that you might have more reasoning behind that, but I think it's a matter of really being able to speak to all the components involved, and or maybe something simpler than that. Anyway,
No,
that
this is a
was one
great point,
clue
Daniel.
I got, and I actually tried and was not able to install it. So it doesn't work in every wiring system. Of course, I just stopped there. I could have hired an electrician. I could have maybe read up and done some more work if I felt safe and confident in that. So there's always an option. I think one person specifically was wondering, how do I know if this smart thermostat would actually work with my heating system? And I think
Mm.
the way to really know that for sure would be to look at the heating system that you have and contact them or go to their website and see, would a smart thermostat work with this? Just do some searching in a search engine and see. Or you can, Becca, I think they could probably contact someone in the help desk to maybe see if they could find that answer for them. Is that possible?
Yeah, and I actually just put in the chat because, I want to say Efficiency Vermont, for example, we don't have we don't have like a specific brand that we say you got to buy this one. We're really looking for an efficient product. So what I've put in the chat here, and if you're on Facebook, for example, it's marketplace.efficiencyvermont.com /thermostats, and that will actually bring you to the Efficiency Vermont marketplace. And what I love about this site is you can compare. So one of the pieces that gets best overall, just off the top of the search from Marketplace, is best overall is the Google Nest thermostat. Lowest price is the Emerson 5 to 2 day programmable thermostat. And then the best reviewed is the Ecobee Smart thermostat with voice control. So you can actually dig into each of these and it'll give you ballpark prices and show you the offers and where you can get them near you. So I really love the site for being able to compare products like that. So if you don't win today, you can actually check out how to find the right thermostat for you on the site too.
Awesome. Okay, a couple other questions we've got here. One person had an energy audit done and
Okay.
found in that process that they have some vermiculite in their attic. Now, of course, we can say a little bit more about that. We can also talk a little bit about our, for the first time ever, our Button Up campaign that we're running to help low-income Vermonters who have vermiculite in their attics. I know that vermiculite was an insulation used for several years, kind of like a very light rock, dusty sort of thing. Good for people keeping things warm and also fire resistant because they put asbestos in some of the brands. So it's a little tricky in that it's not in all vermiculite, but it is in some. And so, like all asbestos remediation, it's got to be done really carefully, and that means it can be pretty pricey to work with vermiculite and often can hold up a weatherization project. So this person got a quote of $16,000 to remove it. They're wondering, like, what do I do next? Is this reasonable, or what should we be thinking about for weatherization with that in our attic?
Wow, that's such it's that's such a relevant question. I think a lot of Vermonters realize in older homes, for example, that they have vermiculite, they have asbestos, and they're not sure the next step. It's important to get information about how to safely remove it, get a remediation expert in there. What I've just put in the chat is actually a link to how to deal with hazardous building materials in your home. I don't want to give any guidance. I'm not a professional in this realm, but there is some information, for example, like the Zonolite Attic Insulation Trust, where you can find out if you're eligible for reimbursement for costs like with asbestos. I am not sure. So those are funds that were set up to help do that remediation work that you potentially could see if you're qualified for. But it's a tough conversation to have to do that remediation work, and the link that I put in there hopefully will be helpful in starting to find the right direction there. And I believe I should look in more clearly to see if you can cover remediation work under the home energy loan. I'm not sure. I think the answer is yes, that you can cover that type of remediation work with the home energy loan, but I want to just put the caveat that I cannot confirm that. So I'd love to follow up individually with that person if there is a specific question about that. I know there's some health and safety things we can cover with the home energy loan. I'm not sure off the top of my head if that's one of them. The other thing to know is there is a health risk there. So if you're keeping it in your home, good to know that. And to just jump into the Button Up Vermont fund, the campaign that we're doing to help fundraise money for income eligible weatherization. I'll start by saying there are many Vermonters in that situation where they have vermiculite remediation that needs to be done who are also eligible for free weatherization services. So what ends up happening is folks who might get that big price tag for doing that remediation, they will sit on the wait list for free weatherization until either there's some cobbled together funding that might be able to support them, or they themselves cover the cost, which is not always possible. So the Button Up Vermont campaign, we're fundraising to support Vermonters to get those projects done so they can get free weatherization services. So if you're thinking about supporting income eligible weatherization or low income weatherization services, supporting the Button Up Vermont campaign by donating would be a great way to actually help address this problem head on, because you're exactly right. The cost can be high and it can actually limit people's ability to move forward with free weatherization. So it's a great point. Gosh, run the gamut with these good questions. Oh, Daniel, you're muted, which is required to happen at least once during.
Done so well so far. The other idea I had with that is, it's a huge price tag to remediate this, to remove it. If you decide to bite the bullet and do it, it could help you with weatherization. Also might be helpful in any kind of like further home resale value and down the road. And as Becca said, thinking about your own health in the building.
Yeah.
Thanks for asking all these questions. Got another one here.
Oh, people are, I love it. You guys are keeping us on.
I know. We're gonna, and we'll conclude at 1 o'clock. And if we didn't get any answers to some of these questions, we'll email you afterwards or find a way to get you the answer.
And I love that there's so many questions. I was worried we weren't gonna have anybody. So go ahead, Daniel. Sorry.
Blower door tests. Somebody asks, who does that test? And isn't it done after a contractor is hired? That's the question.
Good question. So blower door tests typically happen during an energy audit. And if you have a contractor who's coming out to do work that you want to get, you want to show your air loss reduction number on, the percentage of air loss that you've reduced, they do a blower door pre and post test typically. You can get those services like an energy audit. One of the organizations that is actually partnering with us with Button Up Vermont is NeighborWorks of Western Vermont. They do energy audits and they're throughout the state. So I'd recommend reaching out to them as a Button Up Vermont partner. You can also get an energy audit from a contractor. So there's lots of different ways that you can get that assessment done. And yes, pre and post blower door tests are typically what happens. It's a good question.
One other question on the vermiculite. Someone was wondering if it's possible to test it to see if it has asbestos or not. I don't know.
Oh, I do not know the answer to that question. But we should definitely follow up with you.
Definitely. Another question, possibly our last question here. When a contractor gives a quote for heat pumps, are they supposed to deduct the Efficiency Vermont rebate from their quote, or should they be giving a quote without the rebate? And how is Efficiency Vermont keeping track of this?
Oh, wow. So I'll just take one big step back and say that I have some lovely colleagues who deal exclusively with that rebate conversation, who work with our contractors. And from my understanding, it depends on the contractor. The rebates, you can see what a rebate for a heat pump would be on the website. For example, heat pump, heating and cooling systems, hiring a contractor, you can get anywhere from a 200 to 300 instant discount on qualifying models based on the participating distributor. Plus, you could potentially get a $200 bonus for income eligible Vermonters. The other thing to note is that there is also rebates potentially from your utility. So there are other rebates besides the ones that Efficiency Vermont has. And I'll actually put in the chat information on how to see the rebate list for heat pumps. Yeah, I do know that we work very closely with our contractors, so it's a good question. And if you'd like a specific answer, I can follow up directly.
Awesome. Did see one other question too about somebody needing a new door for a mobile home, and
Yes, we got that.
unless you have a more specific answer to that, we can look to see about links that will connect you with resources that might be able to help with that.
Yeah, replacing a door. Yeah, and I think we got that question last time. So please, let's connect.
And I also just saw from one of our viewers who might have more information too on
Please do.
asbestos that they suggested that asbestos can be tested, but it might be reasonable to assume that if vermiculite was installed in Vermont, it probably has asbestos in it.
It's a great question. I learned something too.
All right. I think that might cover everything that.
What a fabulous. Thank you so much, everybody. This was great. And, you know, I'm just so happy we got so many good questions, and you guys really keep me on my toes.
Join us back. You can also, if you want to follow up with an email later on, info@buttonupvermont.org. We'll get that and try to get you information back to help you on your way. Again, for anybody who missed it earlier, buttonupvermont.org has a great list of DIY options you can get started on now, videos to help you along the way. There's also the link on there to, if you are interested in sparing or sharing any of your warmth with other Vermonters in need to the campaign to help with that. And we appreciate you taking your time and thinking about this, and hope you have a warm upcoming winter.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.
Take care.
Bye.